I think we're now in an era which has three really major storms. All three of them happening simultaneously, I believe, mean that you must review how you engage with and connect with people and how you lead.
Welcome to Boardroom Confidential, a podcast by Sherpany, where business leaders tell the stories they usually only share with their peers. Each episode, we have 3 items on the agenda: pressure, lessons, and boardroom dynamics. I'm Emily Sheffield, communication specialist, broadcaster, former newspaper editor and board member, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with senior leaders to talk about what really goes on behind the boardroom doors when the pressure's on and the stakes are high. Joining me this week is Mike Soutar. Mike is an entrepreneur, advisor and media executive who has spent decades building and scaling businesses. He co-founded Shortlist Media, growing it into one of the UK's most successful independent publishers, and previously held senior leadership roles at iconic media brands including FHM, Smash Hits and the radio station Kiss FM. He currently serves on the UK government's Board of Trade as a non-executive director at both Scottish Rugby and the V&A Dundee, and since 2011 has featured as a no-nonsense interviewer of candidates on the UK version of the TV show The Apprentice. His new book, Next Gen CEO, 60 Lessons for Leaders in an Uncertain World, is out now. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Thank you, Emily. It is a delight to be here.
Shall we start with a bit about your book, Next Gen CEO? And I've got it here in front of me, so we're going to hold this up to the camera for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Very nice, sort of hot pink. Can't miss that on the shelves.
Absolutely. Well, I figured that as a business book, you know, the bookshelves are incredibly packed. There is a lot of competition out there. And I figured we needed something that was going to stand out from. So just using all my old magazine and newspaper experience, it's how can you make a statement that works from 10 yards away?
Yeah, focus on the front cover.
Exactly.
In the foreword, you compare it to a Delia Smith recipe book you carried around with you for years. Tell me about that. What's the book about? What inspired you to write it? And how do you hope people will use it?
Well, look, just to reassure all listeners, there are no recipes that I've made up in my book. The analogy was merely when I left home when I was 17 to start work for the first time, I took a few belongings in a small suitcase, and one of them was Delia Smith's Complete Cookery Course book, which my mum gave me because she kind of figured I was going to need to, be able to cook for myself. And it's a book that I have kept all those years, and I've always gone back to it. It's kind of like it's the foundation stone for. I mean, I love cooking now, but it's the foundation stone for everything I cook. So every time I find like a new recipe in a magazine or online, I will almost always go back to Delia's and go, how did she make, I don't know, mayonnaise then? And also over the years, this is a book that has become opened by the hob. It's become spattered with grease. It's got the evidence of kind of meals I've made. It's got new recipes stapled into it. It's got post-it notes all over the place. It is a book that I have used and loved as a result. And what I wanted to do here was, with Next Gen CEO, to write a book which would be as useful and as used, a book that sits on people's desks as opposed to is read once and then goes up on the shelf. It's designed to be useful. It's designed to have actionable frameworks in it. It is 60 super short chapters. It's a book that is designed to sit alongside you rather than anything else. And so my hope is that it will be a book that ends up, with pages turned over and post-it notes in and
favourite bits we return to.
Exactly. Yep. Things underlined, margins, scribbled in. A book that people break the spine of, that they photocopy and give other people bits of it because they think it might be useful. If that could happen, that would make me super happy.
Now let's start with boardroom pressure, something we both know about. You've built businesses from scratch, held senior positions at some of the UK's biggest media brands, and spent years watching ambitious entrepreneurs unravel under pressure in the Apprentice boardroom. Where does the biggest pressure actually sit? Is it in the room with Lord Sugar or in the real boardroom that no one films?
As you say, I've been in both, and they are different sorts of pressures. So to take Lord Sugar's boardroom, one of the great things about The Apprentice is none of it is scripted. I mean, I'm not an actor. I couldn't remember a script if you held a gun against my head. So all of the tasks, all of the interactions, all of the interviews are authentic. They're very genuine. What The Apprentice does is it truncates everything. So it takes realistic business situations and then gives people an almost impossibly short time in order to complete them and achieve a win within them. And that time pressure tends to bring out the best and the worst in people. People reveal themselves under that sort of pressure. And the same thing is true in the boardroom. I have been in the boardroom on both sides of the table, on one side reporting back to Alan and Karen and Tim in terms of how the interviews have gone, and also on the other side as somebody who has every now and then stepped in as one of his advisors to follow the candidates. And you are properly at your attention. We're not playing games here. This is about getting your point across in a way which is really clear. And for the candidates, there is genuine jeopardy here. So the temperature in the boardroom of The Apprentice is typically much higher than it would be in a normal boardroom unless that was an organization which was in crisis.
Yeah.
And I have been in those boardrooms as well. Those boardrooms where things are going wrong absolutely everywhere. Action is required, but the people who need to make those decisions and the people who need to support them, and that's really what you get in a boardroom. Those are the times where everybody knows that a wrong decision could make a bad situation even worse. And that can be a horrible, sickening, yet kind of quite exciting feeling at the same time. It's a proper roller coaster.
Yeah, proper roller coaster. We can all look back on decisions we've made in our careers and think, I wish I'd made a different choice there. Are there any moments like that which stand out for you?
I have sat in boardrooms where I can see that a decision which I definitely would not make, which I think is the worst decision, gathering pace and gathering momentum, and it hasn't been my time to speak. I'm not chairing I'm sitting on the board, I'm not chairing the board, and I'm thinking, I think this is going to be catastrophic. And at that point, I think earlier in my career, I would probably go, well, I'd look around the room and I think many of the people in the room are more experienced than I am.
I'll stay quiet.
I'll stay quiet. I can't do that anymore. I won't do that anymore. I have to have the courage of my convictions. And so I will now speak up, and I will do so constructively, but without ambiguity. And I'll be really clear. I'll be super clear. I don't care if that makes me really unpopular. And it will do, because there will be other people in the room whose careers are hinging on a yes. And, thing about boards are terrible at saying yes and terrible at saying no. So they're very good at saying maybe. And I have worked all of my board career to try and make sure I'm never in a board that says maybe. It's either yes or it's no. Yes is a much easier word to say. No is harder, but no is often the most important.
It's a very good passage in your book about speaking up, especially when you're young. And I remember starting my career at The Guardian about a year in by walking into the news conference, which I was allowed to attend, and standing up at the end, does anyone want to speak? And giving a long speech about, very well prepared, saying, by the way, your sports pages don't have any women in it. I mean, it was like I'd thrown a grenade into the middle of that room, because back in those days, there were only about 1 or 2 women ever in the room, like 20 men, 1 or 2 women. But I had prepared my argument. Now, the kickback was huge for me, but I didn't get fired. The editor said, well done. But admittedly, I didn't make many friends amongst the sports team. But I didn't point any fingers. I did it very gently. And that's to my point, is that it's about, I'm sure, Mike, you've been very, very good about preparing the arguments, because it's not just about saying, I think this is all wrong, guys, is it? It's about removing the blame and preparing your arguments. Yes. And I'm sure you strike me as someone who's very good at preparing the argument.
I think great board meetings are ones in which everybody is prepared. And I chair board meetings as well as attend them as a non-executive or executive director these days. And I know who has prepared and who hasn't prepared. Now, I always prepare because, frankly, I'm too scared not to. I can't turn up at a board meeting. I mean, I'd rather phone in sick if for some reason I hadn't read the board papers. I'd rather not be there at all because
you'll get caught out.
I'll get caught out, and B, I'll be useless if I'm trying to catch up. So, yes, I'm very clear about my point of view on those things. And that allows me to not be trying to do the work in the room. So it allows me to be curious and open to what other people have got to say. And I have seen multiple times where people have gone into a board meeting, really good people, the best ones, will go into a board meeting with a clear point of view. And by the end of the board meeting, they have changed their point of view. And I really respect that. Means it was a good board meeting and they are a really excellent board director. And I have changed my mind on things as well.
Yeah.
Because new information's come in. But there's one other thing I would say, which is board meetings are also a time for dynamic discussion and debate. And good leaders, I think, are people who are able to make decisions at speed, in volume, with the absence of full data. And often board meetings are that place. You are typically in a board meeting, you have a group of people who don't all work together because they're not the executive team. So they're coming from different disparate parts of industry or society, and they're coming together. So inevitably you get this brilliant melting pot of opinions and kind of diverse thought. And if you're really well prepared going in, you know your stuff. So you can actually be really curious about what other people have got to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would never, of course I can fake my way through an argument, but when I know I'm faking it, it doesn't make me feel good.
At Shortlist Media, you were building quickly in an industry that was being turned upside down by digital disruption. And you and I have a lot of experience in this. I would like to say to listeners that I was editor of the Evening Standard and you were CEO of the Evening Standard. We sadly just crossed over, but I did come to see you for advice. And very good advice you gave me then too.
Well, thank you.
Was there a moment when you genuinely didn't know if the business was going to survive? And what did it feel like in the boardroom at the time?
So with Shortlist Media, yeah, absolutely. Shortlist Media was a bet that both readers and advertisers would change their habits, which we knew they would because the volume of ads in the first 6 months was much lower than we had ever really hoped for. That was a truly difficult moment. And the non-executives, our chairman, Sir David Arculus, the non-executive directors, there was no hiding from them. We had to account transparently. It was good for me because I had to face up to what the difficulties were and therefore
and
what
report
we did.
honestly to them.
Yeah, because I knew that I couldn't
hide.
Yeah.
And they were intelligent people.
Exactly.
So
I couldn't kid them. And even if I felt like I could, I'd maybe only be able to do it once or maybe twice, but that would catch up with me. And as a result, my credibility would be ruined as a leader. So it made us make difficult decisions, cost-cutting decisions early. And as a result of that, at no point did we run out of money and we came through that.
Was there
curve.
something you learnt off them as board members? I mean, these were very experienced people on your board.
Yeah.
They had also backed your business. Looking back now, what did you learn off the way they behaved with you?
They could have blamed me personally. What I guess I learned at that point was when a business is in crisis, there's no requirement to be nice about it. You can be, of course, personally compassionate because you can appreciate that the founder, that founder's team are going through hell right now. You can be personally compassionate about that, but this is not a personal issue. You're attacking the actual problem, and I think you have to back them so long as they've demonstrated that they truly understand the level of seriousness of the situation that they're in, and they have a credible plan, and they've made the promises that they're going to keep you up to date with it.
Let's move on to boardroom lessons. In the book, you argue that everything we thought we knew about leadership is transforming. What is the single biggest lesson from your own boardroom experience that made you believe things are changing?
what often happens with kind of changes, especially kind of societal change or the way that consumers might change their consumption habits, is everybody says, digital is going to change everything, right? And, in kind of at the end of the 1990s, the internet is going to change everything, right? We were still sitting in our 28th floor tower, selling hundreds and hundreds of millions of copies of magazines, making £100 million a year in 2006, going, nah, the internet didn't really change anything, did it? It did, but it needed to morph first of all. And what you typically see with any change pattern is it's a kind of Malcolm Gladwellian tipping point, which is change. It builds up, and then something happens, and at that point, everything tips.
Yeah.
And the decline of the incumbent happens incredibly quickly, and the rise of the insurgents happens incredibly quickly as well. I think we're now in an era which has three really major storms. AI is going to utterly change not just what we consume, but how we consume it. It's going to change the nature of work and jobs. It is already eating starter jobs, which is going to cause us a massive crisis. You have a complete change in the workforce, a very new generation who are those young people and a stage above that, who are coming into the workforce who there used to be a contract. And the contract was, if you work really hard, then you'll be a success. And the success is you can, afford a deposit to get a
home,
mortgage
a car,
on a house.
yep.
You can afford a car. You can start a family.
Yeah. And that contract feels broken.
It's the standard of living, the cost of living means that the rungs on that ladder are just too far apart for most people to really think about. So they are now, of course, starting to question work. And if leaders now don't articulate the meaning of that work in a way which imbues a noble purpose into somebody, because they understand you are this part of the machine and this is the end point, this is why this is really important. If you can't do that as a leader, you can't anymore just fall back on but if you don't work really hard, I'll sack you, or work really hard, it'll be worth it, because it often isn't worth it to the same degree. And then I think the third thing is geopolitical instability. The all of those alliances of that have lasted for 80 years are crumbling in front of us. New alliances are beginning. 5 years ago, if you spoke to a CEO of a large company about their supply chains, they would basically say, yes, that's fine. My compliance director's all over it. And what they meant by that was their compliance director was busy honing the efficiency of the supply chain. They weren't really looking at what happens if that goes wrong. We now have a situation where geopolitical movements, big, shocks, are impacting even tiny businesses. And so with any one of those three changes on its own, I think would cause you to review the way that you are leading. All three of them happening simultaneously, I believe, mean that you must review how you engage with and connect with people and how you lead.
So the final item on our agenda is boardroom dynamics. A common theme, and we have discussed this already a bit, is the danger of too much agreement in the boardroom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But have you been in rooms where that was a problem? And what should a leader or chair actually do about it in the moment? I mean, if a chair is sitting there and everyone's just nodding in agreement every board meeting, I'm the kind of person who would think, okay, this is weird. We need to spice things up here. This is weird.
And what would you do either as
I'd
a
start
participant
asking
or as a chair?
difficult questions, probably.
Exactly. You would start saying, you wouldn't start going, does everybody agree with this?
Yeah.
You wouldn't comment on the environment.
Or a single person.
You would drop in, you would say, and what if this? And what if that? And if the circumstances were to change, would this still be such a good idea?
The tension, you get creativity out of tension. I mean, I think we both come from creative backgrounds. We were journalists. I think creators understand tension is good. Something good can come out of tension, can come out of disagreement in a boardroom.
Yeah.
As long as it's managed well, doesn't fester, get personal.
Exactly. And that's the thing, right? Attack the idea, never the person. And so, if you come out with...
Yes, but how often as a young person did I feel when I was saying perfectly things that turned out to be very true to people much older than me, their response was to attack me personally, shut me down.
Yeah.
That's not great leadership, is it?
It's terrible leadership. That's shocking. And it's an immaturity in the leader. If the only way they can win an argument is to frankly cow you, is to bully you into
silence
down, that's just awful. They've got to be able to take that they've got to be able to take those ideas on the chin. They've got to be able to respect them wherever the ideas come
from. And a little bit of generosity, don't you think? I always feel that when I'm dealing with people much younger than me now, because I'm so old, is that they may not frame the argument in a really sophisticated manner, right? They're young, they're passionate, they know things, they feel strongly about them. I think if you're an older person dealing with younger people in a boardroom or younger leaders, as long as they're being respectful to you, let them show a bit of passion. They're not going to be perfect. They haven't got 30 years of sitting in boardrooms.
Exactly.
And you need those fresh ideas.
Also, I think I don't know if you do this as well. If I'm in a situation like that and I'm we're having a meeting, it's a one-on-one meeting. I deal with a lot with new CEOs and young CEOs. And so, as you say, they haven't necessarily had some of those rough edges are still there, and you want those rough edges. They're brilliant because they're the bits that magic will attach themselves to, snag onto. Often I will hear the idea, I will hear rough edges and all, and then we'll do a little session where I'll go, I think you've got a brilliant idea there. Can we just break that down then? And I will ask them questions about that. And we will talk about how you might message something like that. So that's the idea. So we know that's a really good idea. Let's think about the message now. And the message isn't about their idea or about how they normally talk. The message is how the audience receives it. So let's put ourselves now. It's the best trick in the book, right? Can we think now? So who is it that you're speaking to? Again, look, we're journalists, right? We've worked in magazines and newspapers. The first thing you think about when you get up in the morning isn't what's the news. The first thing you think about is, how do I make this personally relevant to the person who I know is reading this, right? That's the first thing. That's what makes a great journalist, rather than just somebody who a stenographer, right? And it's the same thing. How can I help a CEO who has a great idea but is a bit raw in terms of how they might articulate that idea? How can I help them to empathize with the needs of the audience? That's the board maybe they're going to pitch to, or maybe it's their customers, maybe it's a client or whatever. How can we get that? And once they understand what that audience is looking for, then it becomes magical. And then they learn. They learn that really quickly. When all of a sudden they know how to take a raw idea and turn it into a winning idea, it's brilliant.
We were just talking before we came into this podcast room, and I asked you a question about leadership in crisis. I think you can't, if you're a leader or you sit in a boardroom, at some point you are going to be hit with a crisis. Sometimes very frequently. And I would say any of us who were leaders during the pandemic and post-pandemic, there was a lot of management crisis. Everything was turned upside down. And even once the pandemic was over, everything was still upside down.
Yes.
And we all had to grapple with new ways of working. Many companies were carrying huge debt. Everything was very, very difficult. And then we had the Ukraine war and everything else that's come on top of it. But you said to me, there is a difference. I said, well, isn't it always about strategy? You've just got to really strategize and win the argument. And you said, no, Emily, there's a difference between
strategy and tactics.
And I'm very interested because we came in here and you didn't give me the answer. And I'm genuinely interested. What is the difference between strategy and tactics?
The difference is this, right? A tactical decision is one that you can make. And if you get it wrong, it's not impossible. It's a bit embarrassing, but not impossible to remake it, right? You tried something, it might have worked, it didn't work. Actually, I'm going to quickly change that. You don't lose much time, you don't lose much credibility from doing that. A strategic decision is a one-way gate. Once you've gone through it, you can't go back again. So a strategic decision is an acquisition or a divestment. Once you've bought a company, you can't give it back. Once you've sold part of your business, you can't buy it back again. I guarantee what will happen is you will have very few strategic decisions, but you'll understand why they're strategic decisions because you understand the weight of them, and you will have a lot of tactical decisions. Any business that's in crisis, any organization that's in crisis needs momentum. It needs to feel like it's going forward. Otherwise, the people inside it will lose faith. Its customers will lose faith. Everything it'll just stop. And once it's stopped, you really are sunk at that point. The thing that gives organizations momentum is decisions. So go to your tactical decisions, right, and start making them at speed in the knowledge that they will give the organization momentum and that most of them you'll get right. And that will create a sense of win that will infuse the entire organization. It will feel like the right place to be. It will buy you time then to do the work that you need to do on the strategic decisions in order to get those right, to position them properly with your board, to really understand the consequences of them. And when you make those decisions, you make them with 100% support and all the momentum that you've built up there.
Now, we're coming to the end of our podcast, and Mike, it's been such a pleasure hearing your stories and your insights. But we'd like to finish with one final question. If you could go back to your first board meeting, what would you tell yourself? Read your book?
Yes, here's a copy of my book.
Here's a book, by the way, Next Gen CEO, it's called.
It's not coming out for another 20 years yet, I'd be saying, but here we go. I think what I would have told myself is, this is normal. This is completely normal. This is not something to be wary of. You are here because you've earned being here. When you're in a boardroom, a proper grown-up boardroom, it's not a charitable exercise. They're not there because they think you might make it. They're not taking a risk. You are there because the people who've put you there believe that you are worth being there. So you need to believe that from the get-go and speak clearly, not overspeak, make your points, and then get out. There's nothing better than that first board meeting, which isn't ever your very first board meeting, but the first time when you go in with a clear agenda, with 5 bullet points, where you know you went in, you made those points, you looked around the room, you owned the room in that moment, you checked that everybody understood precisely what it was you wanted to say unambiguously. You know that because you looked them in the eye and they got it. Whether they did the right thing with it or not is not your responsibility. You made those points and then you shut up and you listen to everybody else. That happens in about, if you're lucky, that happens in about board meeting 4.
Great. Thank you, Mike. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your boardroom stories with us and giving us your time and commitment. Thank you.
Emily, thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
You've been listening to Boardroom Confidential, a podcast by Sherpany. Sherpany is a leading meeting management solution designed to meet the unique needs of the board committee and executive meetings. Find out more at sherpany.com and make sure you subscribe to the Boardroom Confidential podcast to hear more business leaders tell the stories they usually only share with their peers.